Well, let's start. We're going to do part 2 of our interview with Dennis. And I got a couple of you that sent in some questions, and I kind of rolled them together. And if you have another question that you would like to ask, just, you can certainly stick up your hand and ask it as we go along. And so some of the questions that we got, Dennis, were really about Kenya, just in general, because we, for the most part, we don't know anything about Kenya. That's kind of where we're at. And so, I think most Americans, even though they've taken, world history classes and so forth, just sort of would say Africa. It's just Africa. Well, I learned early on when I went to India for the first time is that India is much like Africa in that there are 22 or 23 different distinct states in Africa, or in India, that all speak a completely different language. They have completely different cultural identities and so forth. You spoke about that last week a little bit. Would you explain a little more about the differences between the different states or nations is really what they are, not states? How are they different culturally? How are they different politically? Are there religious differences? Those kinds of things. Now, I've got to run to my office this second, so don't start preaching. Stay on the question.
So I guess I can talk?
Yes.
But no preaching.
I trust you.
All right. Well, thank you, Pastor Mike. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Nice to be here again. Last week I said something. I went and fact-checked myself, and I wasn't. It wasn't an accurate statement. So I want to just put it on record that the richest pastor in the world is not in Africa. Is Kenneth Copeland. Yeah. And then number 2 is, depending on what site you look at, the second, the third, the fourth. So the African pastor Oyedepo is either number 2, 3, or 4, depending on which website they couldn't decide what number he was. But I know for a fact that the richest pastor in the world is Kenneth Copeland. So that's out there. But the richest pastor in Africa is Oyedepo. So in the world, there is 2 Brazilians that are massive rich, and then a few people in America here. So I'm going to put that out there. So if somebody asks you, just say that I made a mistake and I corrected myself. It's a good thing to do these days. Having said that, Africa has over 50 countries. So it's a continent with over 50 countries. Now, just a very, very big overview is North Africa is mainly Muslim, and then East Africa is Christian, South Africa is Christian as well, and then West Africa is Christian, but with a lot of voodoo. So if you want voodoo stuff, don't go to East Africa or South Africa, go to West Africa. And I always tell people, if you can speak 4 languages, you can live anywhere in Africa. So English, French, Arabic, and Swahili. So in East Africa, mostly Swahili is the dominant language. South Africa is English. West Africa is French, and North Africa is Arabic. As for culture, man, it's diverse. Like whenever you're speaking to an African, it's safe to assume that when they say Africa, they're actually talking about the small part of Africa they're from. So I don't wanna sit here and pretend that I'm the authority on everything Africa. I come from Kenya, And even in Kenya, I come from the southern part of Kenya called Mombasa. And even in Mombasa, I come from a small place called Tudor. So when I talk about Kenya and Africa, that is my experience. Now, having lived longer than most people under my age, I know a little bit more about more things than most people. But the culture in Africa is very diverse, extremely diverse. You have a lot of people that are very, very conservative. You have a lot of people that are very, very liberal. You have a lot of people that are very, very, what is the word for witchcraft? People that believe in witchcraft, what are they called? Superstitious. Superstitious? That's a nice word. Superstitious. Dark, yeah. Just almost bordering satanic, So it's very, very diverse. Yeah.
Explain a little bit about food.
Oh, wow.
People ask me that all the time. What do you guys eat in Africa? And so I'm tempted to say some exotic things that are juicy. You're talking about the juicy stuff. But we eat the same things that you all eat here, except we cook them differently, and the spices that we use are also different. Now, if you go to Congo or some parts of Central Africa, people eat monkey brains, and I have never understood why anybody would eat a monkey, but apparently it's delicacy there. And then there also, we had dinner with Aaron and Chris last night, and we're talking about Kenya, so they got a 2-hour version of this session,
Okay, wait. What's the most interesting thing that you guys learned from talking to them, culturally speaking?
That they drink milk and blood.
Cow's blood.
And
why do you do that?
Again, it's a tribe in Kenya called the Maasai. They believe that blood and milk gives them energy.
Okay, so we should ask you, not him.
No, she's not Maasai.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they drink blood and milk. Yeah.
You had it?
No, I didn't.
We spent a week on the Mara. They never offered us that.
Yeah,
I'm not suggesting that they should.
they wouldn't.
We didn't hear that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they drink it. And actually they get it fresh from a cow. Is it a vein or an artery on the cow's neck where they have somebody shoot it with an arrow and start bleeding, and they collect the blood, and then they drink it when it's still warm and fresh. And it gives them a lot of energy.
You didn't mention goat.
Uh,
And why did my future in-laws offer me a goat when Simon married my daughter?
Because Kambas do that. That tribe, whenever they come for negotiations, they bring a goat. And as they call it, in their language, they call it ndeo, which means they're coming in to give you that to start the negotiations. And then after that, there is more animals coming.
To start the negotiations.
Yes.
Oh, you should have been there.
Okay, what did you get besides Simon?
In the end, because they couldn't ultimately provide a live goat, I got a frozen goat leg. And you remember at the wedding, goat was served.
I ate, I imbibed. I was there. They're married because of me.
Yes, babe.
Like Maasai, so I lived amongst the Maasai when I first went to Kenya because I had to do bush training and all this stuff. And so they won't offer you the blood and the milk. They're probably not allowed to, tourists or white people or whatever. But I did get the kidney. So like whenever they slaughtered us a goat, like right there in front of us, then they literally took out the kidney and I ate like still the steaming hot kidney. So, but that's like also another delicacy, like a welcome. Yeah, so other tribes, that's a common thing.
Okay, I'm just thinking of all kinds of new potluck dinner things here.
We don't do potlucks here, remember?
Oh, we're going to start again. Tell us a little bit about the most recent elections. Now, the election was in Kenya. Does each state has their own election? It's not state. What do you call them?
Counties, they're called counties. The
Counties.
counties are the equivalent of states here.
Okay.
Yeah.
They all have their own elections. So in Kenya, you had an election. Explain the difference between the two parties.
So there is 47 counties in Kenya, and every county has a governor, a senator, and several members of parliament. And then the county government has members of county assembly, and then they have a women's rep that was a post that was brought into the country to bring the numbers of women in the parliament close to the number of men in parliament. And so the way that election is conducted is you have to get 50% of the votes cast plus one vote. So if you get 50 plus one, and then you have to win at least 24 counties. You have to get majority votes in 24 counties. And so the recent election was between the deputy president of the country of Kenya and one of the most veteran politicians in the continent of Africa. And so whenever the elections were, it took about almost a week for us to get the results. And everybody is sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. And then when the results were announced, the deputy president won. But there were some anomalies, which the guys that are complaining in the other party are supposed to go to the Supreme Court and complain and admit their complaints. And then the Supreme Court will look at it. And if the case has merits, then either they will declare the elections null and void and then go back to the ballots. And so the parties are not like Kenya, are not like America. America has Democrats and Republicans, and those are very long-standing political parties. In Kenya, every election, a new party comes up, and it comes up depending on who is in coalition with who. And so you find a lot of tribes come together and they form a party. And so the election this year was very interesting because for the first time, the Kikuyus, who are the largest tribe in the country, did not have a candidate for president. So these two parties, and they have the most numbers in the voting bloc. So the two parties were rushing and campaigning in the central Kenya, where a lot of Kikuyus live, to get their votes. And so the people that got the votes was the deputy president's party, got majority of those Kikuyu votes. And so it's very complicated. So there is no established parties in Kenya. This is the party. So I vote according to where my tribe will go that election year. So I might be with their tribe this year, and then next election, our tribal chief says, no, we don't like them anymore, so we're going to vote with this tribe right here. So it is not a voting of issues, it's a voting of tribal allegiance, if I may call it that.
That sounds a lot more like what we've become in our country. Just the way that it is. Tell people about the guy that you wanted, that you voted for. Mm-hmm. Tell about his faith. Yeah. You spoke to me the other day about how faith plays a role in his life as well personally as well as a politician.
Yeah. So I didn't vote, number one, because I had to go to Washington, D.C. to vote, and I'm not going to pay all that to go vote there. But the guy that I was wanting to win and won, he's a believer. Now, whenever you talk about believers and politics, you have to really pour a little bit pinch of salt there. Now, but his faith, he's very vocal about his faith, his Christian faith. So he goes to church. He has people come to his home, which is not the state house, but the deputy president's residence. And they have prayer meetings. His wife is a very, very prayerful person. And they've been praying. They go to church every Sunday, and they're very public about that. A lot of meetings in Kenya when they start, political meetings when they start, you'll have the Muslims pray, the Christians pray, every religion will pray. The deputy president's meeting, and I've attended several of them, both private and public, Muslim will not pray in the prayer. Only Christians will pray, which is a very interesting thing politically, because you have a Muslim voting bloc, that you're trying to appease, but he has really made his faith very clear, that he's a Christian and everything that he does and say are very Christian based.
And Christians really like that about him.
So that is another thing so in Christianity, like we had a bishop run for president.
A bishop?
A bishop, like a Christian bishop. And then we had another guy that was pro-marijuana run for president. And then we had these two primary candidates. And so you would think that the Christians, because Kenya is 80% Christians, that they will vote for the bishop. The bishop came last. Actually, the marijuana guy got more votes than the bishop, And so I don't think people vote according to faith again. Now there might be, because a lot of the tribes that come together, mostly they're Christians, but that's not the reason why they voted for Ruto or against Raila. It wasn't because they were Christians and not Christians. Because if we were voting with our Christian conscience, we would have voted for the bishop, and the bishop did not get in. But the bishop now is supporting the deputy president, and he's saying the reason why he's doing that is because the deputy president is God-fearing. So now he has folded his party and joined the deputy president's party.
Fascinating. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to compare or contrast Kenyan culture and American culture, but I want you to do it through the eyes of your daughter. How does she compare and contrast the two countries, do you think?
That's a hard question. Babe, you spend more time with her than I do.
You may speak also.
You want to speak to that? Okay, try. I'll fill in the blanks if there is anything to fill in.
Just like how different they are?
Yeah.
Through the eyes of Angela.
From her perspective.
Because she spent more of her life in Kenya, but I think the last 4 years here of her like developing mind and becoming a teenager, she spent here. So, I mean, she would say they're very different. I mean, completely contrast, very different. But then in Kenya, she also grew up in Kenya, but in a very American influenced household as well. So she would probably speak to like the differences in foods, probably the differences in, because there she was homeschooled, here she was in school. She would probably speak climate, she would speak to climate, because where we live there in Mombasa, it's like living in Houston here, where it's just, I mean, you can there's some more climates, but extremely hot and humid all year long, all year round. So like Christmas is the hottest time of the year. there, so we're sweating in the kitchen, dripping sweat when it's freezing cold here. Should probably speak to safety, just because there we lived behind 10-foot wall, barbed wire fence, 2 really mean dogs, bars on our windows, security guard outside of our house 24/7. So should we probably speak to that here? We don't have that. We might have an alarm system, but should probably speak to language, because there she picked up on a lot of Swahili, but in our home she heard mostly English. At church we kind of went to an English/Swahili speaking church, so she heard it. Here she's all English. What else would she speak to? Probably, dogs and insects, and like we lived, because majority, like there's no central heater air, and so in Mombasa we have huge windows that are open. Like during the day, you wake up, you open all the windows, so you get all the air coming in and out all the time. Most of the time we sleep with half of them open anyway. And so you get critters in and out of the house. We live with lizards all over the wall. The cat would bring in lizards, and they would, we'd find them all over. Chameleons. Let's see. Monkeys. We lived with monkeys coming. Should we talk about the monkeys that would come into the kitchen and steal all the food and poop on the counters?
She's been attacked by a monkey when she was 3 years old.
Yeah, she actually fears them. When she was little, we were in church, and a monkey came in. I think she had a cracker or biscuit or something, and a monkey came and stole it from her hand and scratched her. And so she's terrified of monkeys. You should actually, when you see her, ask her about the monkey who stole her biscuit. She'll be like, how did you know that? Let's see, what else?
What about a tire?
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah. So there, and we lived in a very Muslim area, so very conservative. Like the Kenyan population in that area, it's a touristy area, so people are starting to wear like really skimpy things. But as Christians, we didn't. We were very modest, and so if we went out to a village or we went somewhere, it was always like a long skirt like this. She as a kid kind of got away with more like shorts and things like that, but they were always long. So you'll even now, she when she dresses, she can't wear more skimpy things that like her friends and stuff here would wear, just because she used to be kind of modest.
Okay, this is a question either one of you could answer. In our country, over the last 10, 15 years, a lot has been made of generational grouping. So, I'm a boomer, baby boomer, and you have Gen X and millennials, and now Gen Z, which is what your children would be categorically. Do they have those kinds of groupings in Kenya that are easily identifiable as they are here? And it's really not easily identifiable, but they're certainly identifiable here. Do you have that?
No. So we have older people and younger people. And among the older people, there are people that lived before Kenyans independent. Became independent. We became independent in 1963. So there are people that lived before then, and then there are people that were born by those people that saw the independence. And then so I was born in 1977, so I was after that. So my parents saw that, so my parents would be those people, and then I'll be the children of those people. And then there is my children, who would be the younger generation. Actually, when I say there are people my age have older kids, because we had kids later in life. And so some of our, like I think BJ might be, a grandson of some of our generation, and so we have those categories, but there is not really the Gen Zs and Gen Xs. We try to copy America in that sense, and people group themselves in that. But right now, there's a lot of movement away from the things of the older people and trying to form their own culture for young people. And so one of the things that is happening in Africa right now is very interesting, that 65% of the African population is under the age of 25. So a lot of young people in Africa, but majority of the decision-making, policies and all that are formed by older people. So there is a very big divide in, there is this conservative movement among, I may call it conservative movement among the older people that is dying away, and these young people are trying really hard to get into a space where they were not allowed to be in before, and trying to influence what goes on especially in our country of Kenya. So you look at every election, there is increasing number of young people being elected into office. I think the youngest member of parliament or women rep in Kenya from Bomet in Rift Valley, I think she's 24 years old. And she's been elected to go into parliament. And then there are many other people that are below the age of 30, and a lot of them are in their early or mid-30s that are coming into parliament. And that is both exciting and scary at the same time, because there was no mentoring in the process. So they're kind of coming in with open minds, fresh brains, and really in rebellion almost to a lot of the things that have been part of the culture before.
Okay, just for the record, you two have given new meaning to the words fresh brains. Okay, I would encourage you not to use that terminology.
Oh, really?
Yeah, after we talked about monkey brain.
Oh,
okay,
fresh brain.
It's just a word
Fresh.
to the wise. Okay, now here's another question.
How would you call that? 18. How would you call that? Fresh ideas?
Fresh ideas.
Fresh ideas. Okay.
Yeah, fresh brain.
English is my third language, so please don't judge me harshly. I may say something that might not come out well.
I'm just helping you.
But grace.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you for the help.
Over the course of my lifetime in the United States, young people, one of the most easily identifiable characteristics of young people would have been the music that they connected with. Mm-hmm. And music has played an enormous role in the shaping of our culture as kids identified with certain styles and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Does music play the same role in the lives of young people in Kenya?
Yes.
What? You're being very careful on how you answer things now. No. What would be? I mean, here we can, in the Dallas area, there are kids that listen to country music and listen to hip hop and listen to metal music and pop music and whatever and then they hang out with kids that only listen to those styles of music. Is that true?
Yes. So we don't listen to country music in Kenya. It doesn't.
Why not?
It hasn't gotten there yet. So I guess the country music people are very stingy with their music. Yeah. So, but you have a lot of hip hop is, but now they are listening to Tanzanians and Nigerians and South Africans are kind of like the music, the trendy musicians among the young people, and so they're listening to a lot of African music, but it sounds more like the music here. Mm-hmm. Just the words are different. But Tanzania, they have actually managed to have a flavor of music that is very unique mm-hmm. to them, that is really getting traction. So some of the richest musicians in Africa are from Tanzania and Nigeria.
Fascinating.
Each tribe, like Sarah was saying, like there's certain parts of the country or tribes that have like
Yeah, we have our own.
Have their
Like
own
when we have
Yeah.
Amaru singing, he's
Yeah.
singing the country music, my country music.
Yes, oh, that a version of your country music. Yes, yes,
Because
yes.
he's talking about my culture.
Yeah, your culture, yes.
Yeah, so we have that kind of.
Uh-huh.
I would say music is centered around language and culture. So yeah, so you kind of know whenever you hear music what part of the country that singer is from and what language they speak.
And then the young people will have their own thing, which are not identified with people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he was asking. Well, the young people. Yeah, because even in our tribe we have songs that the older people like me would listen to, and we really like the song. But then when I put it in and play it, the young people are gonna think, "Oh, what are you listening to?" You know, and so.
Yeah, not very different. Okay, I want to make sure I get to two other questions. I've got some others, but this would be of interest to everybody here, and that is, how does Kenya deal with abortion? Abortion is obviously a hot button in our country, abortion rights and so on and so forth. What is it like in Kenya?
So abortion is not, I don't want to use the word celebrated because it's not culturally accepted in Kenya. And Christians are very vocal about that. And I am worried about it because the conviction of, let's say, gay marriages, abortion, and all the other vices that are really becoming normal in the world right now. In Kenya, we are against abortion and we are against gay marriages and all that. But the reason is not because of our deep Christian conviction. It's because of our cultures. Now, cultures change a lot. Every generation has their own culture. So I am worried that in the next few years, abortion, again, as all these young people are coming in, and a lot of them are very influenced by the American politics, and unfortunately, Kenyans are fortunately or unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately, but interestingly, let me say interestingly, that's a good word. Most Kenyans are very pro the Democrat Party in America. So the Democrat Party, as I understand, is very is pro abortion and pro gay marriages and a bit liberal about those things. And so when the young people come in, they look up to America to give them their political convictions. And so when you look at that, the pastors are not preaching to that. We didn't preach against divorce either in Kenya because culturally it was not allowed or it was not acceptable to divorce your spouse. But the convictions were not rooted in the Bible. They were rooted in the cultural norms. So now abortion is very prevalent in Kenya because the people that believed in abortion did not believe in divorce are dead now. Most of them are dead. So as the new generations are coming up, you see more and more acceptance and tolerance towards divorce, abortion, and gay marriages. And that's one of the things that whenever we teach the Bible in Africa, we try to be extremely intentional about speaking to those things that are accepted as sin, but not from a biblical point of view, but a cultural point of view. Because whenever I say abortion is a sin in Kenya, everybody's going to say amen. And no one is going to say, oh no, let's talk about that. No, it's accepted, but it's not because of their biblical conviction, because of the culture.
Okay, that's good. That's really helpful. Another question. I have gotten to, we've spoken about a lot of things. And one of the things that you talked about a little bit being here in this country. You were a black man in an overwhelmingly white church.
Yes.
When you came here.
Yes.
You were extremely noticeable. And as you went to seminary, you were that guy at the seminary.
Yes, sir.
And even to the point of being held up as that guy. Okay. So you have experienced on some level here being very much a minority in the culture that you are in, church culture.
Yeah.
And really, I ought to ask Allison this more than I would ask you, but if I were to go and kind of move into Kenyan church culture, would I be as aware that I was white as you were aware that you were black in this culture, church culture?
Yes. You want to answer that because you've been.
Probably even more aware.
Yeah.
You would be like, I lived 17 years, but I was always aware. I never blended in, ever. I mean, I felt like I did, but like people looking in, I would never blend in. So, you would be,
Because for you, you were not. It wasn't only in church; it was everywhere.
yeah, so you'll be accepted, like you're gonna be accepted, mostly, depending on where you go and what you're trying to do, what your motive is there. You're gonna be accepted and almost held up to a place of being, I was uncomfortable in the way that I was held up and put on a pedestal or on a platform. Because you, as the white man going into Kenya, and it also depends on where you're going. If you're going into Nairobi, it's totally different than if you're going into the village in, I don't know, Western Kenya or East, whatever. It totally depends on where you're at. In Nairobi, you'll blend in. I mean, like, nobody would probably even notice that you're white. Mombasa, you'll be noticed a little bit more, but not so much. Now, if you go into Shimba Hills, or you go into like a village area, the whole village is going to come and see. You know. Like,
So I have a funny story about that. So I took my wife to our village, and they had never seen a white person. These kids had never seen a white person. So I show up with my wife, and I said, it's a nice thing when you go into these villages to have candy. And so you need to have this. So we went to the supermarket and bought candy and went into the village. I was sitting there, and my grandmother's home is like right outside primary school. So I waited around lunchtime. I said, let's sit outside. So we're sitting outside the house, and the bell rings, and all these kids come out, and they stand at the road, and they're looking at Allison. And so I wave at them and say, do you want to see a Mzungu? That's what they're called, Gringo, Mzungu. And they said, yes, we want to see a Mzungu. So they came, all of them. And I said, babe, please give them candy. And so she starts handing over candy. And they're touching her hair. They can't believe it's her hair like that. They are like, it's like you brought a clown into the city, you know. They said, it was so funny. But these kids had never seen a white person, you know. And so there are those places in Kenya where people have never seen a white guy. So those are fun places to take my wife to.
and like the white man, so I mean, whenever you go into Kenya, like, so as a white person, they're not necessarily going to know if you're from America, if you're from Europe, from Australia. Like, they can try to guess when you open your mouth. Yeah. So, but it doesn't matter to them. If you're white, to them it's like, yeah, you come from outside, and you're also seen as you have money. So you can be the poorest white person from outside the country coming into Kenya, but you're going to be viewed as you're a millionaire. And so they're going to hold you to that. And so they're going to treat you like you're the president. And so, like, even in this even rolls over into church. And so, I mean, whenever I had to always be aware, we had to always be aware, like, or Dennis, like, we would go to a conference, he'd be the speaker, and we'd have to decide whether I'm going or not going, you know, because of my skin color. You know, is it a good idea for me to go? Is it gonna cause too much ruckus? You know, is it gonna put him in a place where he has to answer too many questions, or they're gonna expect that we're gonna meet all of their needs, physical needs, because we have money, you know, and you can explain yourself away that I don't have money, it doesn't matter, they're not gonna believe that.
There are two things there. One, there is a perception. So every time I take Alison out, and it used to disturb me, but I don't anymore. We go to a restaurant, and I'll sit there with her, and when the waiter comes, she'll only talk to her, and she'll bring the bill only to her. And there's a time, because so we live in Mombasa. Again, context. In Mombasa is a very tourist town, and a lot of tourists come in and they begin relationships with Africans, either a guy or a girl from Europe. So, and then we have one word for that bundles where all white people come from. It's called Ngambo. So you come from Ngambo, it's not America. Ngambo is not America, it's not England. It's just a place that all white people come from, you know? So when you say, where are you from? I'm talking Ngambo, or he's from Ngambo, that means that you're from that place that nobody knows, you know?
I like that.
And then we go, so one time I was driving, we were going on vacation, and we go to this resort. And it's a 5-star resort, we're going there, I'm driving, we get to the gate, and the watchman asked me, what taxi company are you with? So he asked me, oh, you brought us a visitor? I said, yes. I said, and then he asked, what taxi company are you with? So they thought I was a taxi driver. So when I got in, I gave the manager a piece of my Kenyan mind about that, so.
We got used to that, but sometimes it gets to the point, like, I would have to just switch over into Swahili and, yeah, tell them how I felt as well, so.
That's great.
But,
Scott, you got one comment?
I was only going to say, add on to what Allison says, regarding wealth, it has an impact in the market. You don't go to market without a local guide, because the local guide keeps the merchants honest.
Yep. Because here, everything has a price tag.
Yeah.
In Kenya, a lot of the open marketplaces and even some shops, they don't have a price tag. The price tag is gonna be put on that item depending on how you're dressed, what you're driving, and who you're with. You know, and so something that a Kenyan can go in and buy for 500 shillings, whenever you go as a white person, the price all of a sudden goes to, 2,000. Or like, let's say I go with Simon, and Simon's accent is not my accent. And so when we get there, the ground is level, the price is 500, and then Simon speaks, and the price all of a sudden goes to 2,000. So the good thing, if I go to someone and say, Simon, do not say anything.
Yeah, don't take him to Kenya.
Yeah,
Okay.
just be quiet. Just be black and quiet.
I got one last question. It's not so much a question. I want you to explain in
Yeah.
the few minutes we have left. You, a number of years ago, began an organization called Empower Africa.
Yeah.
And this is your personal baby. It is what you created.
Yeah.
I would like you to just kind of briefly tell our people what Empower Africa is, and the role that you play in it, and what is your vision for Empower Africa.
Yeah. Man, yeah, that's I love talking about Empower Africa.
Look, see the clock.
And I see the time there.
See the clock.
I have about 6 minutes.
Yes.
So I'm gonna try my best. 2016, I was in seminary, and when I went to seminary, I was in a class, a missions class, that was taught by a professor whose experience in Africa had been a short stint there and a bunch of short-term mission trips. And so he was talking, and I'm sitting there, and I want to die, because most of the things he was saying were stereotypically accurate. Does that make sense? So they were accurate if you're a stereotype, if you're stereotyping Africa. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, man, it's not right, and I want to get my grades also, so I want to be very careful. I don't say anything that is gonna make him mad so that he can fail me in that class. And actually the professor was Alison's classmate when she was in seminary, you know. And so after the class, I went and asked him, and I told him, with all due respect, sir, some of the things that you said about Africa were not accurate. He was very humble, and he said, let's talk about it. What about what I said was not accurate? So we talked for 3 hours. And then he said, so what are you going to do about it? Because I told him, I said, listen, a lot of the discussions about the needs in Africa are not decided by Africans. So you have felt needs and real needs. So you have people sitting in Western countries in a table, in an air-conditioned room with very expensive equipment, speaking about the needs of Africa with no African in the room. So those needs are not African needs, they are needs that they think Africans want or need. So he told me, what are you going to do about it? And I said, number one, I want us to have a discussion where the table is round and there's no head or tail, and then there is a healthy number of African representatives that are speaking into these issues. And he said, again, what are you going to do about it? I said, I'm going to start an organization, and I'm going to call it Empower Africa, to empower African people to transform Africa. But we're going to do it through the Christian values and Christian ministry. It's going to be a Christian ministry. And so we said the best thing that we're going to do is we're going to try to do it through local churches. And then where I got that is Rick Warren of what's his name? Saddleback Church in California. They adopted the whole country of Rwanda. So Rick Warren and the Rwandan president are very, very good friends. So he went to Rwanda, and Rick Warren told the Rwandan president, I know a way that you can help your country. And so he had 2 screens, and one screen had both screens had the map of Rwanda, and one screen had green dots everywhere, there's green dots everywhere. And the other screen had red dots, like, you know, sparsely distributed in that map. And he said, in these 2 maps lie the solution to helping the Rwandese people. And the president is puzzled, just kind of like you guys are, you know, what is going on here? And he said, these red dots that are sparsely distributed around your country, they represent every government institution in this country. And an average Rwandese has to walk about 20 kilometers to get to one of these red dots. And then he turned to the other screen and he said, in this other screen with all the green dots, that is all the churches in your country. And he said, if you want to do anything significant, you need to empower the people that do these churches, because the pastors and the church leaders are in the lives of the people day in, day out. The people, when they get a baby, they call the pastor to pray for them. When they get sick, they call the pastor. When there's a wedding, they call the pastor. So the pastor is constantly speaking into the lives of the Rwandese people. And so he said, if you want to do anything significant, you have to do it through the church. And I thought that was very genius, because it's the same thing in Kenya. There is churches everywhere, and there is pastors everywhere, but the pastors are not trained. When I came here for the first time in America, I was told that 90% of pastors around the world do not have seminary training. And I was mesmerized by that statistics. I was like, what the heck? But when I went back to Kenya in 2004, I began talking to pastors, and it became very apparent that this is a need that needs to be met. But most of them don't qualify to go to seminary or Bible school, because a lot of them never made it to high school. So if you're going to go to a college, you have to have high school, grades and papers, before they admit you. And so I thought what we need to do is to have non-formal training to give the pastors in Kenya and East Africa the same education that they get in Bible school, but in a non-formal way, and instead of building schools, to do it through the local churches. So that's what we are doing in Kenya right now, and the organization started in 2019. Right now we have over 250 pastors in training in Kenya, and about 100 in Tanzania that are currently being trained. So a lot of my time during the week is communicating with those leaders and also recording classes for them and putting them on YouTube so that they can learn the Bible that way. So that is a very brief summary. If you want to know more about this, please let me know, and I will meet with you and tell you the details of this.
Does it take 3 hours?
It depends on how many questions you ask. Yeah, it always takes longer because the presentation itself takes less than an hour. And then the follow-up questions now is where the fun begins.
I will say this, nothing that you and I do takes less than an hour.
You have to say that so that people can at least show up.
Yeah. Anyway, I would encourage you to get to know Dennis and Allison, and they would tell you that there is so much more about Empower Africa that goes along with this. And I want to say to you, to both of you, it is, I am not the greatest on God's providential chess playing, where God is always organizing everything, making everything happen. Theologically, I wrestle with that a little bit. We've talked about that. But I have no doubt that God gave us, you guys. I have no doubt about that. I don't know how that all happened. Don't know why you bought the house where you did. I don't know that. But you guys have been a blessing to our family already. We hope that it's reciprocal, and we look forward, I think, to years of partnership together. I don't know what that all means. You don't know what that all means, but we are grateful that you guys are here. And so thanks for taking the time to do that. Next week,